Hi, I'm Kelly Vaughn, and this is Inside Indy. And today we're taking a look at the front page of the Indianapolis Recorder newspaper, and in particular this article that was written by a writer who's in the studio with us today. And the title of the article is "Barriers Await Ex-Offenders When They Rejoin Their Communities," and that was written by Tyler Fenwick, who is a staff writer for the Indianapolis Recorder. He is in the studio with us today. Hi, Tyler.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
And then we have his boss is here.
I'm a little nervous.
And she is Oshia Boyd, editor of the Indianapolis Recorder newspaper.
Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. Welcome to the show. And then we have Richard Samuels, who is the president of Growing Indy.
Yes.
And you're part of the subject of the article.
Absolutely.
As well. Okay, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So glad to have you here. And I'm really proud, honored to have you here. The Indianapolis Recorder newspaper is the African American paper in the community. And Oshia, tell us about the paper, a little bit the history, because the history is deep.
Yes.
And rich.
Yes. As you may know, we are 124 years old, 125 next year. So that is amazing. Black-owned, local business in the community for 124 years. I mean, I don't know what more to say besides that's just awesome.
Wow.
Started out as a 2-page church bulletin, and we've grown to what we are today. So,
Is it still owned by the Mays family?
Yes, the Mays family still own the paper. And every week we're working hard to put out great news, great journalism.
Okay.
And we also have a magazine, Indiana Minority Business Magazine. So Tyler writes for both.
All right, nice. Okay, well, I've got my paper here. I have a subscription, so I encourage
Thank
viewers
you.
to do the same. Because a lot of people think, they say, well, newspapers, people don't read them like they used to. But a lot of people still do read the paper. And I think the audience gets divided up more so than people not doing it at all. What do you say to that?
Well, we have an e-edition, we have the print edition, we have a website. So however you want to read us, we're there, we're available. Okay. Our website is optimized for mobile, so you can read it on your phone, which is where most people are getting their news nowadays anyway. So we're everywhere. Right. We're everywhere you need us to be.
All right. Oh, I love that. That's a nice little slogan there.
There you go.
It is. I just came up with that.
So Tyler, tell us about this article that you wrote in the Recorder.
So it started with a jobs and resource fair at Eastern Star Church. And I went there, talked to some people who were looking for a job coming out of jail or prison, talked to some of the people who had set it up to figure out what kind of barriers are there for people trying to re-enter society. And from there, I went to a cost of poverty experience training that was specific for re-entry. And that's where I met Richard here. And so I heard a whole bunch of stories from people who worked in social services and people who are going through reentry or have gone through reentry and had so many struggles, some of which I didn't really anticipate. I feel like I learned a lot just in the couple weeks I spent reporting it. So it's something that you could go on and on with and write a book, and there are probably many books about the subject, but it was just a couple week crash course on what it's like to go through reentry.
Well, so you took this course voluntarily, even though you're not an offender. You were trying to go through that experience?
I didn't take the course. I was just there to kind of observe it and talk to the people who did. It was my second one. The Marion County Commission of Youth put it on. They hosted it, and they did one just on poverty in general a while back that I also didn't go through, but was just there in the same role, kind of just observe and write a story off of it.
Okay. So tell us about the barriers that you discovered in your investigation.
So I think the biggest thing, and Richard may disagree with me, the biggest thing I learned was that it's just a web of social service agencies and court-ordered mandates. You're dealing with your parole officer. It's so much stuff that you have to do when you're coming back into society, and it's very confusing. It takes up a lot of time because there's 100 other people trying to do the exact same thing you're doing at whatever county office you happen to be at that day. And it just takes up a lot of time and is confusing, and people get easily frustrated with it.
Okay.
I think that might have been the biggest barrier that I walked away seeing.
Okay. And I hear a little.
Yeah.
I don't know what I hear from over
I
here,
don't
Richard.
either. I
No,
was thinking the same thing.
actually, I don't disagree. I agree 100% with what he's saying. The McCoy and Goodwill Industries collaborated and put on a great scenario where you were able to see a lot of the frustrations that justice-involved individuals deal with when they come back to society, and just waiting. A lot of it is just standing around and waiting and having to get to places and not having transportation, and just not having the money for transportation. There's just so many different things that end up being barriers that you don't think about. And when they had the poverty simulation, a lot of those things came to light.
Okay. What did you want people to learn from this article?
I think I wanted people to learn that there's what they know on the surface, which is that you come back into society and it's hard to get a job. That's true. That's a big part of
That's what most
re-entry.
people think, yeah.
Yeah, but there's so much more to it. If you come back and let's say you had a car that was associated with whatever crime sent you away in the first place, and the state took that car. There are just so many things that when you come back, you have to overcome, and so that's why I mentioned the web of different agencies and things like that you have to deal with, because it's a huge stress on people's lives when they have to go through that. And then there's regular life, like if you've got kids, you got to get them to school, and what do you do when they're on spring break and you have to still go to your work if you were lucky enough to get a job? So it's just an accumulation of things that become a great burden on people.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Go ahead. Yes, certainly.
It just makes me wonder, are we setting people up to fail? What is going to be the outcome of these simulations? Are people going to actually use this to change the system? Because it sounds like we're setting people up to, you get out, now go get you a job. But like you said, you have so many barriers, and how do I accomplish this? Because most people want to stay out of prison. They don't really want to go back. But how do we help them? Because you're still paying that debt, it seems like. You say your debt's paid, but then you're it's into perpetuity, it seems like. That you're just over and over and over, okay, I did this. Yeah, I did this when I was 17, 18, 19, 20. Now I'm 35, 40, when am I done? When can I move on?
Okay.
And I don't think that it's so much them trying to set us up for failure. And when I say us, I spent 26 years in prison myself, and coming home, faced a gauntlet of barriers. One of the most pressing, the driver's license situation. I had $8,000 in back fines and fees and tickets, and so not being able to pay that immediately, now I'm looking for other means of transportation, or else I'm being illegal. Or if I don't, if I do happen to get a job, I can't drive a car, because then I'm breaking the law again because I don't have a driver's license. And so there are just so many things, and what it took for me to get my license. I got my license probably about 8 months ago, and I've been home for 5 years. So I had to constantly jump through hoops of doing this and doing that, and trying to find ways to get the reinstatement fees reduced. Went and talked to the Commission of Corrections and the House bill, I think it was House Bill 1141, that talked about, which just passed. And they're going to reduce some of the fees now. And so that's kind of been one of the missions that I've had since I've been home.
Oh, I saw that on Facebook the other day.
Yeah, so, it's just, there's a lot, but there are so many things, to Tyler's point, there are so many things that people don't know about. about the single mother who the young man is in prison somewhere, and then so the children and child support and all of that, and what how does that look when you're coming home out of incarceration, and what does the reentry landscape look like then? So.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I did see the measure that just passed, and there were people commenting on Facebook about it, and some people made the comment of, well, if you did that, you just suffer through it,
Right.
whatever the consequences were, or if your license is suspended and the unnecessary fees or the fees are so high that, you end up not being able to pay it, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse.
What those individuals don't understand, though, Kelly, is that for every individual who has come home from incarceration and is trying to get that taken care of, if my parole officer or probation officer says, I have to get a job or I'm going back, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to drive illegally
Right, yeah.
to and from a job. And so therefore now I am an illegal driver on the road, possibly hitting someone else or doing, so it's not something as simple that you can just say, well, they should just, not do this.
$8,000 is a lot.
It is. And so you have
could be
to do what
gainfully
you have to
employed
do in
for
order to
the last
survive.
25 years and not be able to pay that.
There you
That's
go.
kind of, yeah.
So.
Well, and a lot of times those fees, they accumulate because you didn't pay them, and it keeps going up and up. And I know I had a relative who hers escalated to like $3,000, and
Right.
it started off with like a $150 ticket. Well, she's a single mom. She works every day. She's in nursing school. She just couldn't take care of it.
Right.
But the people on Facebook were like, oh, that's just so beyond them.
Right.
And then when I said to them, well, you act like you expect people to be perfect.
The people on Facebook.
And I said, if we were, then Christ died for nothing. And I don't think I got a response back. That's when you know you got them on Facebook with.
And that's the importance of, I think, not only the poverty simulation, but Tyler writing the article, getting the information out there that it's not just what you think. It's not just a bunch of lazy people. And a lot of people just tend to think that, oh, they just don't care, or they're just lazy, and they dismiss it that simply, but it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, it's much more complicated. I think what's interesting, people make an assessment about somebody's life or a particular group, what they're going through, or what a black person is going through. And you ain't never been black. How do you know?
Exactly.
Until you've been in my skin, you don't know. Or until you've been a woman, you don't know.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this, the barriers, and getting beyond them after this. And we're back here on Inside Indy, and we're talking about the barriers that await ex-offenders when they re-enter the real world. And on the set with us, we have Oshia Boyd, who is the editor of the Indianapolis Recorder newspaper, Tyler Fenwick, who's a staff writer, and then Richard Samuels, who is currently with Growing Indy, is the president of Growing Indy. I want to talk to Richard about your experience coming out of prison into the new world, and just in general, I would think that's kind of a culture shock.
It really is. I mean, especially when you've done as much time as I had. When you come out, you try to prepare yourself for when you're about to be released, and you think that, oh, okay, I've done this, I've done that. Of course, while I was incarcerated, there was college and prisons, there were, different things. Of course, slowly but surely, those things have been eliminated. But at that time, I was able to get.
There's no college and prison now?
No, not anymore. They took it out in 2010.
Wow.
So
where have I been? Okay,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's difficult. I mean, then too, you can just about imagine a lot of people were in an uproar that we were getting Pell Grants and people out here couldn't afford college. So that's kind of why they kind of ended up taking it out. But coming home and thinking that you're going to hit the ground running, thinking that you're prepared, thinking that you're ready for freedom, because you've served your debt to society or what have you, and getting out and realizing that people don't want your services. I
So give us some scenarios.
I knocked on a lot of doors, and I had at the time I had an associate's degree. I was 3 classes away from getting my bachelor's in sociology, and I figured, I'd come out and, go back to college, and I'd be great. I'd have a bachelor's degree, go get a job, everything be wonderful, take care of my family, And so coming home, one of the other barriers that I faced other than the driver's license was getting back in college. There were so many hoops that I had to jump through, not to even attend college on the campus, but just to attend it online. I had to have letters of recommendation. I had to go before the special committee. I had to write a letter talking about, what I planned on doing and all of this, and it was like, just so that they could say, yes, you're allowed to take classes online. And I only needed 3 classes, to graduate. And so I did that, got approved. And the reason I got approved was because I think of the people who wrote me letters of recommendation, because at that time I was doing my radio show, Growing Indy Reentry radio show, where I had met Mila Eldridge, Lena Hackett of Community Solutions, just a lot of people who were well known in the community, Vop Osley, those type of individuals who supported me and supported what my efforts were. And so they approved it. I finally got my bachelor's degree and ended up with a broom and a mop in my hand.
Well, a lot of people end up.
Well, I mean, I never thought. I wasn't looking
they got
for that.
Masters got a broom,
right?
So,
Absolutely.
So don't feel bad. I guess.
Absolutely. And then one day, I'm in the bathroom, and the mop falls out of my hand, and I reach down and pick it up, and when I raise back up, I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm like, man, what are you doing? You didn't strive and do all of those things educationally for you to be doing this type of manual labor. And so I quit, walked away from everything. And, that's also out at the time I was in and out of the radio show with Harold Bell, HB, doing that. And just decided to start Growing Indy and to say, hey, who knows reentry better than me? Who knows all the doors that I knocked on, who knows all of the hoops that I had to jump through. And so who better than me to share with those individuals who were coming out what they needed to do and become that question and answer person. Now I'm going into Pendleton teaching Getting Ahead While Getting Out, teach MRT, which is more recognition therapy classes for guys coming home. So there's just a lot of different things that I'm doing now that are focused completely on reentry and recovery.
So that you've taken your experience and then pretty much made it into a career just in a positive direction.
There you go.
Wow.
That's one of the, if I could say anything to those who are coming home, your pain and suffering is a skill set. And most people don't recognize that. And sometimes it takes you having to go through the ugly in order to get to the part to say, what is your purpose? And so that pain sometimes turns into your purpose. And so that's what has happened to me. And so now everything I do every day that I wake up, it's about how do I help individuals who are coming home, who not only just are coming out of incarceration, but who are just starting over again. You have a lot of people out here with the opioid epidemic, which is another one of the reasons why
That's
I became a
another
recovery
show.
coach.
You'll come back for that
Absolutely.
Yes, we had a whole package on that.
So yeah, there's it's just a lot, and I think the community is trying their best to address a lot of the situations along with the violence that's happening as well. But I don't think that they're utilizing commodities that they have that are hidden right in front of them, and that are people with lived experience.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. So you knock on these doors and pretty much nobody would hire you for at least what you wanted to do. You've got a degree and all that. And so what was their reasoning? What were the excuses you heard, or are they right in the way that they feel? Do they have because I'm curious what their hesitation is, and is any of that justified?
Well, sometimes it is justified based upon what is it you think you're worth? What are you trying to make in terms of, in order to make a living? Because if you have a family, then you're trying to take care of a family, then that's going to dictate what type of money that you accept or decline. And sometimes people will just when they, of course, on your application, if you're being forthcoming, and I have a criminal history, a lot of times I was lowballed, offers. You know what I mean?
Okay.
To whereas, oh, you're desperate for a job. You know what I mean? And so it makes a difference.
You like an immigrant.
Exactly. And basically,
You just migrated to the city.
There you go.
From the jail.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And so sometimes it works against you.
Is there anything that you want to tell people out there who are in a position to hire? What would you say to them that they've got it all wrong? What would you say?
I would think that justice-involved individuals are probably some of the best people that you could even consider hiring because they have a desire to work. They're looking for something to do. They're looking for something to be productive about in their lives. And so to not hire them simply because of what you think their past is, a lot of times, unless you do the research to figure out, okay, well, why are you saying that you don't want this person? Just because they have a criminal history and you don't even know what the criminal history is? It's just a criminal history? It doesn't make sense, So I would just say to those employers who are out there, actually, I would say to the employers to take the time to hire someone who will not so much the ex-offender immediately, but hire someone who can tell you about the advantages of hiring an ex-offender. People who can be bonded and those type of things. So there's a lot of perks nowadays that if a company decides to hire those who have been previously incarcerated, that can benefit the company. So.
Okay. Now, Oshia, you were kind of nodding your head there for a second. Was there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I'm just agreeing with everything. I mean, it's just very interesting to hear that people want to work, but they can't.
Right.
Because there's this stereotype of people don't want to work, and they're, like you said, they're not lazy. So then to hear people are really desperate for a job, a good job.
It's really, in my opinion, about taking a chance. And I can understand in some respects how an employer, they may be concerned about trust issues, things like that. But I think, and somebody might say, well, I don't want to do that. But it's a chance you take. And you have to, if you're going to say you believe in, individuals being reformed, it's not necessarily going to be always easy, and it's not going to always be comfortable. And sometimes you got people that haven't been in prison that will do whatever you're afraid of.
Yes.
So there are no guarantees, and so I would think that part of your message to the audience would be, just take that chance.
Well, and sometimes it's not going to be the job you want. I didn't want to mop floors,
Right.
but it sustained me until I was able to do something different or to get into a different mindset. There are a lot of, for the young men that I deal with now, I deal with men who are 16 to 26 in the WeCan program with Community Action Greater Indianapolis. And what I tell them all the time is, don't tell me that you can't find a job, because the jobs are there. It's just a matter of what you'll be willing to work for. The fast food industry, they're always looking for people, but most people don't want to be in the window saying, hey, welcome to McDonald's, you know what I mean? So it's just a matter of what you're willing to do, but you also have to understand that you have to be willing to make whatever sacrifices that are necessary to do the things that you need to do to get back on your feet, so that you could have those different choices.
Okay. I wanted to ask Tyler, is it possible for people to wipe their felony records?
Not quite. You can't wipe your record. What you can do in Indiana has a second chance law, which says if everyone from you weren't found guilty to violent crimes, after a certain amount of time, you meet certain requirements, you can appeal to the state to have access to those cases restricted, so that in a criminal record search, unless it's done by a criminal justice agency, it's not going to show up. So you can do that. It's not quite an expungement, but you can restrict access to your criminal record. If you have to meet certain requirements, and it has to be a certain amount of time. There can't be any cases pending against you, things like that, but you can restrict access to your record.
Okay.
Earlier this morning, I was in a MCRC meeting, which is the Marion County Reentry Coalition meeting, with Andy Fogle. Andy Fogle is the one that does most of he approves most of the records that are being expunged or not. And he's saying that there's some really great things that are coming down the line to really help with that. So a lot more people will be able to get their records expunged.
Okay. Well, I think this has been an interesting conversation, and I appreciate you all coming in. We're out of time, but yeah,
Wow.
I've learned.
That went
I know it was
fast.
quickly, right. But I appreciate you coming in and sharing your experiences and your story and your paper.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right. So Oshiya Boyd with the Indianapolis Recorder newspaper, the editor, Tyler Fenwick, staff writer, and Richard Samuels, who is now with Growing Indy. Thanks so
Yes.
much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
On Inside Indy. And thank you for joining us. I'm Kelly Vaughn. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.